Welcome to another episode of the About Mansfield Consumer Advice Series. I am your host, Steve Casillo, and as always, you are you, and we appreciate you being here today. And as we do every Friday here on the podcast, we bring in our financial philosopher. That would be Phillip Washington Jr. He is the Chief Investment Officer with Stonehill Wealth Management and the host of his own podcast, Wealth Building Made Simple. Today's topic, index investing is dead. So today, as we do every Friday, we talk about financial stuff. And today, you're going to help me out with this topic because it's something I'm a novice when it comes to investing, so I don't really know what this means, but index investing is dead. It sounds intriguing. Mm-hmm. Sounds like maybe it would be an episode of Columbo or something. I'm aging myself here. But help me out. In index investing is dead.
Yeah. So you know how and I was a victim of it as well. So I'm going to explain it, and it's going to sound harsh, but I was a victim of it because by the way, I still use ETFs, which are exchange traded index funds, and as a product, they are a good low cost way to get exposure to asset classes. But as an idea, index investing is similar to this. Goodwill built a great business from people taking their old clothes and then repackaging it up and selling it for cheap.
Yeah.
And so the idea of index investing is, hey, just buy a low cost basket of, for example, S&P 500 or Dow stocks. And if you look back in the past, it performed well. And I'm like, yeah, but that's looking back in the past. The world doesn't stay static. It keeps moving forward. And so, of course, it looks better in the past, but we're going to the future, we're moving to the future, and like things change. And so index investing is the idea that you can be the active investor, because if you just repackage up the old economy ideas and invest in a low cost, they would do what they did in the past, which is like, it sounds asinine now when I actually say it that way, but like I believed it. People believed it because statistics lie.
Yeah. Or they can be spun.
Or misunderstood.
Yeah.
I mean, to be more optimistic, because I'm a stats guy. I looked at it and I was like, oh, well, this looks right. But what it doesn't take into account is the fact that when you're looking back, you're looking at averages and you're not factoring in the companies that like grew really big and then came into the S&P, right? You're not factoring that while the collective mind might operate on the law of averages, an individual can say, but I want to see into the future, and I want to invest in the things that a new generation brings into, which is just a easy mind shift. And then you like, over time, even if you diversify and you don't pick the right ones, because you're buying the asset class of the future, you end up like outperforming, right? Without even trying or being clever, because you're not buying old ideas.
And you talk about statistics, and that a weatherman will say there's a 30% chance of rain. That's a statistic.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's spin that into something positive. There's a 70% chance of sunshine.
Yep.
Or at least a 70% chance of no rain. It could be cloudy, but...
Yeah, and ultimately they're saying, I have no clue. This is the educated guess. And the question just came to me, I think people are going to have, is they go, well, how do you guys buy into it? I was like, well, because here's the part that's right about what index investing. It's saying it's really difficult to decide whether Coke or Pepsi are going to outperform over the next decade. Mm-hmm. But they're two sides of the same coin from the same generation. And really net over time, they end up in the same place. Like they both survive. They end up on average making about the same amount of money. So to try and pick between Coke and Pepsi, just buying the next that owns both of them, right? So that's where it makes sense. It's saying if you're doing a like asset class of a like generation, over time they end up in the same spot on average. Makes sense. But if you go outside the generation, right, and you go to the newer idea, then just like the rules of life says, like new ideas have more upside, right? On average.
Yeah.
If you're using averages, new ideas on average have more upside. So just like, so you're going to, as a wealth manager, even though I use low cost index funds for most of my portfolio, I'm being paid to look at the world and then find my clients' goals and objectives, which might be growth, might be income, right? Might be growth and income.
Right.
We don't have suckers over here, but you listen to my podcast, you'll understand that. But it'll, my job is to help say, okay, based on your goals and objectives, now let's put you in the asset classes that are moving towards the future in the lowest cost way possible. It's not going to all be the S&P 500. It's barely going to be the Dow, if any, right? Because of like where the world is moving and understanding like what's going on. But that's an active approach. Having a wealth manager is active, but active doesn't mean like trading every single day.
Right.
Active means you're paying attention to the flow of money and the multi-generational trends that are happening, right? That are dying and being born.
Would you say that's an aggressive approach?
There is no such thing. You ever heard what's the movie called? Money Never Sleeps.
Yeah.
Right. Because there's no such like even in reality appears to be static and moving. But from a physics standpoint, energy is always in motion. Our cells are always dying and being. Everything's always flowing. Like our perception might perceive it to be still, but it's not still. Same with money. Money is never like static. It's going forward or backwards, right? So you could put $100,000 in the bank and you could say, I can see the $100,000. For 5 years, it ain't going nowhere. Yeah, but like 5 years ago, you could have bought like double the house. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So the value of your money got chopped in half, even though you can see it. Like statically, you're like, I see the same amount. Yeah, but you can't buy what it bought because inflation is like the real, quote unquote, relative term you need to look at when you're thinking about your money or your value.
So someone smart once told me, and that would be no, he's over here. Your money should outpace inflation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so whether it's investing in this pot or that part of that pot, if inflation is at hypothetically 5%, hopefully your investments are generating at least 6%, keeping up with the pace of or outpacing inflation.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Whatever inflation is, and the cool thing is you actually can't use the inflation numbers printed by the government because they're a bunch of statisticians, so they get things wrong.
And they can be spun.
Yeah, and I don't think they do it on purpose. I think they just believe too much in stats. I think my loose litmus test, given my intuition of what's going on, is the S&P 500. Like the inflation rate now is the S&P 500. So like, and that's over the last decade been something like 10-ish% a year. I got to check my numbers, but 8, 9, 10% a year for the last decade, including the last fall, right? So I mean, and then so moving forward, it's like, that's my baseline. Like if I'm not investing in anything that's not doing 10% plus a year, my expectation over the next decade is we're not going to make it. And the inflation numbers are starting to confirm that, right? You're looking at inflation numbers and they're beginning to like confirm that. And so that's the tricky part about investing is you have to, statisticians are looking at the past. You can't look at their numbers. You have to like, all right, where's the real number? Because it'll become apparent in the past. Like 10 years from now, we'll look back and we'll go, damn, Phillip said 10% a year. It was 12, 13. He was pretty close. I'm like, yeah, like I'm not going to be perfect, but I just want to, and that's where Buffett talks about a margin of safety. So if I think it's 10, then I want to put for my goals and objectives, I want to put most of my assets in things that are 15, 20% plus. Yeah. Right? Because I get the inflation is a 10. That's lost money if I don't beat it. My net return needs to be, whatever it is plus that, right? And so that's like the important part from an investment standpoint moving forward. Is outrunning the bear.
Outrunning the bear. You don't have to be the fastest.
Oh, wait, you're right. No, I got to outrun the other person, right?
You're right. You just
can't outrun the bear.
I love these Friday conversations because it's kind of like my college financial class that I never took. And so I gain so much information in just these little 10-minute nuggets, and I hope our listeners, our viewers are gaining from this as well.
You know, Stephen, I'm putting this out in the atmosphere because you just, like, one of my goals, and I'm not going to go back and get an MBA because I just don't think that they're teaching me what I need to know. I should be teaching an MBA class when it comes to finance from my perspective. But that's a requirement to be like a college professor. But I would love to teach a course on like finance and money. So I got to get this podcast big enough, and like when the world shifts and people realize, oh, he's leading thought, not regurgitating it, they might ask me to be like, they'd be like, we'll forgive the MBA, deal, and we'll let you teach a class. I would love that. That's like a dream, like to teach a class in college.
I see you teaching a course called the philosophy of money.
That would be dope. That would be great. Sounds like a good newsletter name.
The philosophy of money.
I'm writing that down.
There you go. And that's a T-shirt too.
That's a T-shirt too.
Yeah. Like the financial philosopher. Speaking of, if someone wanted to reach out to the financial philosopher, how can they reach out to Phillip Washington Jr.?
StonehillWealthManagement.com. That's StonehillWealthManagement.com.
Like I said, it's an education. Appreciate it. And we'll do it again next week.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Steve.
We appreciate you listening to the About Mansfield Consumer Advice Series. By the way, if you own a business and you are interested in being a part of the Consumer Advice Series, if you have the knowledge to give information in 10-minute increments to the consumers, shoot me an email to info@aboutmansfield.com. Again, that is info@aboutmansfield.com. We'll tell you how we can get you all set up. Appreciate it. We do it again next week right here on the podcast.